Welcome back to the Brickscore YouTube channel, and in today's video we are ranking every single LEGO Marvel set released in 2025. There are 25 sets in total. Let's get onto the list. And this video marks Brickscore history as it includes our very first collaboration from Studsideup, so stick around as you don't want to miss his ranking. Bottom of the list is the Spidey and Gobby Raptor battle, which is the first of the 4+ LEGO Marvel sets. Now, it's not an unpopular opinion that the 4+ sets are ridiculously overpriced, with this set costing £50. But this set is additionally strange to me, as it has Green Goblin and Spider-Man as Velociraptors, which is a questionable design choice. I understand that I'm not the target audience, but even the build isn't that great. I think kids would have a fun time with it, but a £50 price point makes it inaccessible for children, so the set fundamentally fails at what it's supposed to do. I'm not a fan of this one at all, but I imagine a lot of parents missed out on it as well. The next set is Captain America vs Thanos. Now, I'm not a fan of this set at all, and I find both the builds quite lackluster. Starting with Thanos' vehicle, this is an emulation of the Infinity Gauntlet, with the stones and the golden glove, which I think was a set better in principle as opposed to the actual design. It ends up coming out quite short and stubby and looks like a gold square instead of a glove. Captain America's vehicle isn't much better, which I think is supposed to be a Quinjet, which ends up looking flat, especially the wings, and the additional side build isn't much to talk about either. I guess it's cool to get a Captain America and a Thanos minifigure, but that's the only redeeming quality for me with this set. In 23rd is the Team Spidey Dino Crawler Rescue. I think this set is much better than the final set, as it's more reasonable in price, at only £25. I think the builds as well are pretty solid for a 4+ set. You get a Spider-Man themed truck, a couple of dinosaurs which appear to fit in the back of the truck, and there is a couple player features over on the Rock build, which is a nice addition too. The set is rounded off with a Miles Morales and a Spider-Man minifigure, and again, while the 4+ sets aren't for me, I think this is a pretty good set. Set number 22 is the final 4+ set, which is the Spin and Electro Dinosaur Vehicle Chase. Now, I'm actually impressed with these builds, especially the Miles Morales black and red car, which I believe is an ankylosaur, but I'm not a dinosaur expert, but it looks pretty cool. Electro's bike is good as well, and together this makes quite a fun set, which is realistically affordable at £18. I think these 4+ sets are important, as they are the gateway for kids to get into LEGO, and the last two sets live up to that expectation, but compared to the regular sets, they just can't compete. Our next set is the Spider-Man mech. Much like the 4+ sets, these are particularly unpopular sets. I do have to note that as far as the mechs go, this one isn't that bad. The red, white and blue colour scheme is pretty good, and the additional web piece adds a bit of variety. I think the biggest bonus to the Marvel mechs is that you get 2 minifigures, as with the Star Wars ones, you only get 1. With this set, you get a Spidey and an Anti-Venom figure, which are 2 cool figures. Ultimately, this is an accessible way to get a popular character in a build kids will enjoy, so for that reason, I can't hate it that much. Rounding off the 20s is the Iron Man car vs Red Hulk set, which I have few positive things to say about it. I think both the Iron Man car and the Black Panther builds are average at best, and I'm not a fan of these vehicle-based builds for characters, as with Marvel Comics, there is so much content you can base a build around, and I find it quite a lazy choice. I understand that these sets can make good battles for kids, but in this set's case, you don't even get that, as both vehicle builds are for the heroes, with the villains having a minifigure only. The 3 character inclusions are all cool, and it's a good way to get a Red Hulk for collectors, but I only see people getting this set for that reason, which I've personally never liked sets that are only good for getting minifigures. The first of the teens is the Venom Museum Robbery Polybag, which for a polybag to be this high on the list speaks for the quality of the set so far. The set does tick all the boxes for a good polybag, being good minifigures, being Spider-Man and Venom, and also a pretty solid build, being a couple museum items. There's not a great deal to say about this set, it's just an all-round pretty decent polybag. In 18th place is the Spider-Man vs Venom muscle car, which is another vehicle set that a superhero just doesn't need. However, I have to say I actually quite like this one. I know that's a contradiction to what I've already said in this video, but I think the design for this one is just too cool not to like. The thought of Venom cruising around in a muscle car with a safe full of gold being chased by Spider-Man is just too funny to me. The design of the car is pretty good, and you get 3 cool minifigures in this set, being Spider-Man, Spider-Woman and Venom. I think £25 is slightly too high, but it's a fun playset that despite being a vehicle, I actually don't mind. 17th on the list is the Iron Man mech, which to me is one of the only characters that having a mech makes sense for. The design is nothing spectacular, and it's what you would expect, with arm and leg movements, a place to put your minifigure, and a character to face off against. I do like the printed chest piece on this mech, and the inclusion of Ultron and Iron Man is a solid lineup. It's a mech set, you get exactly what you expect. If you are a fan of the mechs though, it's a pretty good version, but if you're not, it's still a good set. Up next is arguably the most hated LEGO Marvel set of 2025, or possibly even ever. It's the Avengers Endgame Final Battle, which costs an outrageous £90 for an extremely ugly build. Let's take a closer look. The set is essentially a big grey ugly floor which has space to put all the minifigures on top of, with a load of orange portals making up the background. Oh, and you also get a mech included in the set. Together it just comes off as a cluttered mess that doesn't quite have that much space to fit everyone. There's also an Avengers logo shoved into the build. It's just not a good build at all. In terms of minifigures, these are hit or miss, as you get some good figures, such as Iron Man and Thanos, figures that are just close to being perfect, such as Spider-Man and Ant-Man, and some downright downgrades or inaccuracies, such as Cap, Wanda and Doctor Strange. Also, not including Thor in this set to recreate the big three versus Thanos is absolutely baffling to me. I just don't understand how a set can feel so empty and lackluster, yet be so busy. Man, what a poor set. In 15th place is another of the larger sets, which is the Captain America Civil War battle. Now I am so unbelievably disappointed in this set, as it's arguably one of the more iconic MCU moments. The build is unbelievably crowded and built upon a grey slab at the bottom. The Ant-Man design is poor, especially compared to the older set, opting for a more mech or buildable figure style, as opposed to an upscaled minifigure. And the Quinjet design is so small that it can only fit one minifigure, which just feels like a half-baked idea. And the final part of the build is the airport, which is nothing great either, but does just enough to make the scene. The minifigures are lackluster as well, as characters are either the wrong version, completely missing, or just downright downgrades, which can be seen especially in Bucky's case. The set is such a disappointment and genuinely could have been great, and I've yet to mention this costs just under £100. To have a display-based set that doesn't include all the characters from the scene and to have large, ugly builds is so poor from LEGO. It released at the beginning of the year and it's already retiring, and I do not think it will be a miss at all. The only reason these two previous sets are above the vehicle or mech sets, for example, is that there is at least something for collectors of LEGO Marvel to get, such as certain figures or at least a displayable build. And an Iron Man mech, for example, could just be ignored by some collectors, but they feel like they'll have to get this one. But in terms of quality, these easily could have been lower. Our next set is an add-on to a previous set, which is the Thor vs Chitauri set. This is another frustrating one, as it feels essentially like a large battle pack with an additional mech thrown in. And for most collectors, the minifigures are usually the highlight of the set, but in this case, they are a touch lackluster. The heroes of Rocket, Iron Patriot and Thor are all pretty decent inclusions, and I do like the Stormbreaker build, but when it comes to the villains, 4 Chitauri figures are included, which we've already seen a few times. I think for this set, it feels as if it's caught between being a battle pack and an expansion pack to the Endgame Final Battle. The 4 Chitauri make it feel like a battle pack, but then you also get named characters, so I think the better choice would have been to include the 4 members of the Black Order, which I feel really would have elevated the set. In terms of the builds, it's a little frustrating it's another mech build, but I guess an Iron Patriot mech is one that makes somewhat sense. and I actually quite like the Shatari Gorilla build. It's fun enough and doesn't look too bad at all. You also get 2 speeders for the Shatari, which rounds off another LEGO Marvel set that is stupidly overpriced for generally good minifigures and slightly lackluster builds. In 13th place is the Iron Man Laboratory, which has the exact same complaints as the previous set we just covered. The price is obviously the elephant in the room. £50 for this set is absolutely crazy. We've seen a few Hall of Armour sets across the years, I believe 5 in total, and they just seem to be declining each time we get one. While I quite like the design of the armour pods, I think only having 3 is a little bit poor, as it doesn't allow you room to put your potential other armour variants you've got from other sets, unless you buy more of these. I can't really hate too much on the Igor mech, as it does make sense for the set, but I do wish his pieces were put towards designing the Hall of Armour better, as that's the reason people are buying this set. The other side builds are nice inclusions, despite being quite compact, and the minifigures are overall pretty solid. The Aldrich Killian is obviously the standout, and is a vast improvement over the previous version. Pepper Potts is similar to the previous one. Iron Patriot is a really nice figure too, and the red, white and blue colour scheme is lovely, but it's a touch disappointing we don't get a unique Iron Man minifigure and we only get 2. Next up is the Iron Man and War Machine vs Hammer Drone set. Listen, this is your bog standard battle pack with one key difference. The Hammer Drones are brick built, so you only get 2 minifigures. I think these 2 could have been minifigures utilising the armour pieces to give them a little bit of bulk, but I actually don't mind the brick built designs, and they do offer a more larger, bulkier design to fight against. I just feel like the set could have done with one more figure of potentially Justin Hammer, as I don't believe we've had an Iron Man 2 version of the character. It's not a bad set by any means, but if you already have an Iron Man or War Machine figure, it's an easily skippable set. Just missing out on the top 10 is the Hulk Truck vs Thanos set, which, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm not a fan of the vehicle sets. However, I think this one is wacky enough to actually interest me. I'm not sure if it's the thought of Hulk driving a massive monster truck, or Thanos coming down to conquer Earth to see a big lime green truck hurtling towards me that I just can't not love. I think both the Hulk and Thanos minifigures are pretty damn good too, and the £25 asking price isn't too crazy. I think this is the first set on the list that I would actually go out to recommend. Taking up the first spot in the top 10 is the Iron Spider bust. Now I think this bust and the Iron Man bust that we will get onto later are just a few things off being perfect. The general design and angling for the most part is pretty good, and there are some really cool build techniques, especially in the shoulder sections. However, the downside for this set comes in the head area, as the face seems weirdly narrow and out of proportion, which is a real shame as the face prints are really cool. The gold highlights throughout are nice, which also translate well onto the arms of the Iron Spider, which sits atop a nice angular black stand. A big positive is the inclusion of a minifigure, which hasn't been seen in similar ranges, such as the helmet sets or the Star Wars starships, and this Iron Spider minifigure is excellent. The arm printing especially is so good. We do have to end on a negative, however, as the pricing is absolutely crazy at £55 for just under 380 pieces. I think around £40 would have been a lot fairer, so that does lose it some places on the list. Very similar to the previous set is the Iron Man bust, which has the same problems as the previous set, especially with the pricing, but I think the design just tips the balance compared to Spider-Man. The hidden shoulder guns are integrated really well, and the general shaping on the shoulders is great too. The helmet as well is pretty good, but I think the mouth is just slightly off. This and the Spider-Man set are interchangeable in 10th and 9th, and ultimately falls down to preference. Moving on to 8th on the list, we have the Miles Morales mask, which, much like many sets on this list, is overpriced and has a few design issues that stop it from being great. Now I have to recognise how difficult it would have been to capture the curves of the mask, and I think the shaping is overall solid. It naturally pairs up super well with the Spider-Man mask, as it's essentially a recolour with a load of different lovely printed pieces. However, it does also feature the same gaps and difficult shaping designs the previous mask suffered with. If you knock a good £15 off of this set, it's a very good pickup and looks great on display. In 7th place is the first modular build, being Spider-Man vs Oscorp. Now this set is great, as Oscorp isn't a place that we see represented in LEGO that often, despite being such an integral part of Spider-Man's stories. The build consists of 3 main buildings, being Oscorp, Eddie Brock's apartment, and a jewellery store with Miles Morales' apartment above it. The main issue with having all 3 buildings is that they are really compact, especially in the case of the market shop and Eddie's apartment, which is really small. Oscorp is naturally the main piece, but I find the interior quite bare bones and lacking, but the transformation sector at the top of the tower is a really good play feature. The exterior for the most part looks great as well, but I can't help feel like the set should have been dedicated to Oscorp itself. Dedicating the pieces to 2 additional buildings and a small bike spreads the piece count too thin, so each building ends up being half cooked and makes the set feel unworthy of its £120 price tag. Looking at the minifigures, these suffer from the same issues. Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, Miles and Ghost Spider have all seen better versions, even in cheaper sets, such as in Spider-Woman's case. However, the Norman Osborn and Green Goblin minifigures look absolutely great. Eddie Brock is a cool inclusion too, but Kraven is an excellent choice, as it's a character we don't see very often. The set ultimately boils down to being a great idea that sadly lacks in some areas for an unjustifiable price tag. 6th on the list takes us back to the modular sets with Peter Parker's apartment, which I am overall a really big fan of the architecture on display here. The tan elements mixed with the red windows and doors looks really good, and it also leaves some studs exposed to place accessories or even figures, which is nice too. While it is very compact, the interior is really good, hosting a kitchen and dining area downstairs and a bed, office and research area in Peter Parker's bedroom, which has some lovely references hidden as well. The minifigures are overall solid, Spider-Man and Mary Jane are great, and Hobgoblin is a really nice inclusion as we don't get his character very often, but the last villain of Anti-Venom falls a bit flat as he is available in a much cheaper set. I really do feel this set would have benefited from another villain unique to the set being included, and also not including a regular Peter Parker figure in a set named after him is a bit of a miss. And as always, no LEGO Marvel review would be complete if I didn't complain that the set is overpriced, but at least this one falls into the category of sets I would recommend. Taking the number 5 spot is the final of the modular sets, being Miles Morales vs The Spot. Listen, this set suffers issues seen in the previous 2 sets. It's overpriced and could have been improved in both the figures and the build. What elevates this set over the last 2 is that it is based on the Spider-Verse films, which we've had a distinct lack of sets for. The minifigures are the 4 you would expect, but Miles, Gwen and also the Spot all lack LEGO arm printing, which makes them feel really simple. Officer Jefferson is a cool inclusion too, but quite inaccurate to the source material. The PNDY vehicle is absolutely brilliant and it's really well detailed and is borderline perfect. The shop itself is rich in detail and the yellow deli and grocery sign really pops and stands out, but the interior, while being rich in detail, feels really small and cramped. There isn't even enough room to fit all the figures. The spot portals though are really cool inclusions, and as a whole I do like this set, but again it's just too overpriced. In 4th is the LEGO Marvel logo. Now while this looks just like a red box with white Marvel text, inside are some really cool mechanisms to make the set really pop, pardon the pun. This allows the minifigures to burst out of the build to give it a real fun display option, which I feel is a great way to integrate the original 6 Avengers. Wait, why are there only 5? Yes, for some unknown reason, Hawkeye just isn't included in the set, which is just a blaring representation of LEGO Marvel at the moment. The 5 figures you do get are more like their early on-screen appearances, and I think a regular Hulk works much better rather than a big fig. The set looks very cool on display, but without a complete lineup, it does feel incomplete. And guess what? The set is also crazy overpriced. Who would have guessed? Now after all my complaining over the previous sets, Now is the perfect time to hand over the first of the top 3 sets to a friend of the channel, Studsideup.
What's up guys, it is Studsideup here and I'm here to talk about the Fantastic Four versus Galactus construction figure set. This is set 76316 and it came with 427 pieces. Now, is this what we had in mind when we pictured Lego Galactus? Absolutely not. But what I will say is having the set in person, having a play around with it, displaying it next to Avengers Tower, displaying it with the Fantastic Four figures, I do actually really like this set. These construction figures, I think, work when they are based on characters at a different scale. So characters like Galactus or the Sentinel that we got with the X-Mansion. I really like that we can pose minifigures around him and actually have him hold minifigures. Speaking of minifigures, again, they're not perfect. However, I think it's amazing that we finally have Fantastic Four minifigures. I think all of them do look really good. I know a lot of people have complained about the facial expressions on them being reuses. Leg printing, I do think, would have gone a long way, or dual molded legs. But I'm super happy we got Fantastic Four minifigures at all. A lot of people are actually quite angry that the Thing wasn't a big fig, which I get he was in the Lego Marvel games, but in the movies, he wasn't that big. What they need to do is make a minifigure that's like medium scale, so not quite big fig, not quite minifigure, and I think we'll have the perfect balance. You can get a lot of poses out of Galactus, and overall it is a really, really fun set. So if you can pick it up on a sale, because it was a little bit overpriced when it came out, it's well worth it. It's needed for any superheroes collection. This is Galactus, come on. If you have a Marvel collection, you need the Devourer of Worlds in there. But I'll let Brixcore carry on with the rest of his video. Thank you for having me. See you later.
Thanks once again to Max. All of his channels will be linked in the description below, but let's get back on to second on the list, which is the Spider-Man vs Doc Ock subway train scene. Man, it is crazy good to get a classic Spider-Man 2 set in 2025. Now, while this set may look a little bit bland and grey, it's ultimately a New York subway train, and it ends up coming out super accurate. The smash window elements look brilliant too, and really build the jeopardy of the set. And another great feature is these little axle pieces, where you can add bricks and web elements to simulate Spider-Man saving the train. The minifigures are cool inclusions, especially the retro Spider-Man, which features subtle rips on his torso, and I'm also a really big fan of the Doc Ock figure as well. The inclusions of Aunt May and J. Jonah Jameson are a little bit strange, considering they're not in the scene, but due to a lack of Spider-Man 2 sets, I understand why they've been included, but it would have been nice to have some civilians to save in the set, and would have been a great chance to get a certain character. I think the only thing lacking here is a bit of track, as the set can look a little bit flat and bland, having just the train, and this could have been done in a diorama style, and say it with me now, the set is unfortunately overpriced. And taking the #1 spot for LEGO Marvel 2025 is the Avengers Age of Ultron Quinjet. Now I think this is far and above the best LEGO Marvel set, and I'm really impressed by both the colour scheme and the techniques in the layering going up the set. The exterior as a whole looks really good and looks great from any angle. This high quality is found in the interior as well, as there is enough room to place minifigures in the cockpit and just behind it. And there is also space to put Black Widow's motorcycle, which can be accessed via a hidden ramp at the back. The Quinjet sits atop a nice stand as well, which can be rotated to allow the jet to be displayed in numerous different ways. And the stand gets even better, as these clear pieces allow the minifigures included in the set to be displayed dynamically at the bottom, which could be my favourite feature of the set. I think the minifigures are a good varied mix, but I feel like being based on Age of Ultron, I think Scarlet Witch could have been in here too, but the set balances having a great design, good displayability, and some varied figure options too, and for that reason, it takes the #1 spot. And with that final set, that wraps up my ranking of the LEGO Marvel 2025 sets. I don't think it's been a good year for the theme at all, as most sets are either lackluster in builds or incredibly overpriced. But let me know in the comments below your thoughts on my rankings and if any sets deserve to be higher. And if you enjoyed this video, please drop it a like and subscribe for more LEGO news, LEGO reviews and LEGO rankings. And once again, a massive thank you to Studsideup. I will leave all of his channels and socials in the descriptions below. Please go and check him out. He's definitely my go-to guy for LEGO Marvel. and I'll see you in the next one.